Hey everyone, Electra here, back home for not much longer. I am going to be moving out of this apartment for good on Tuesday, the 24th, coming up. I'm it couldn't come soon enough. I've been ready to do this really for almost 2 months now, at least. I've been doing this ever since I lost my job at the end of June, and it's finally going to happen. It was a long process. Turns out I'm moving to the place I first went to the very first trip up to Illinois in early July. That it was fun. It's just interesting how like that was my first instinct, and I kind of flirted with like living in a few other spots in the state. That in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't do it because I don't think it would have been as good for me long term. And it wasn't really the part of the state I wanted to be in long term. And I probably would have ended up moving to Chicago eventually anyway. So I would have kind of just stopped. It would have just been like a stopping point, a stepping stone. And I'm at the point in my life where I don't need stepping stones. Like I just want to go to where I even want to go. Unless there's like a really valid reason to take a stepping stone, but I don't think there was in that case. It would have been a nice apartment for like a good price, but it would have been Champaign-Urbana, which is like basically just a college town for the University of Illinois. And I heard some kind of like questionable things about living there, especially as a trans woman and just LGBTQ in general. Even though it's a college town, that'll make it better, but it's also in a part of Illinois that's fairly close to Indiana, and Indiana's definitely not great for that. Um, and I just the vibe I got in the city around there was not as good. So definitely happy to be going to far northern Illinois. It's closer to Wisconsin, where my favorite game store is, and Milwaukee as well. They also have some good board game stores. I visited one called Boardgame Barrister. They have like 3 or 4 different locations, and it's a really nice store. So even though I won't be living somewhere that has a really good game store like I do here in St. Louis, 9 times out of 10, I have to order it online anyway. Even the game store here like doesn't always have what I want. It's annoying when they have a warehouse with everything in like within like a 30-mile radius, and they they only send a small fraction of their stuff out to the actual retail stores. So yeah, looking forward to it. The move's all set. I'm gonna use one of those metal pods. I've I've never used one of these before for a move, but it sounds like it's a good way to go in my case right now because I can pack it up. I hired like a moving crew of like 2 guys to come out here Tuesday sometime whenever the box will be delivered. The container will be delivered sometime Monday, probably afternoon or evening. I don't know for sure. Doesn't really matter because it's not being loaded until Tuesday. Hopefully, well, actually, I do know that the guys will be here between 12 and 1, which is fine. It doesn't need to be 8 a.m. or anything. And I'm sure there's a few things I could do before they get here. And but I do have to be in my new area for Wednesday morning when I have a thing to do for work. I got it. It's not really like my first day, but it's still like the processing phase of like paperwork and fingerprinting and things like that. So one of the apartments I was looking at got rented literally like right under my nose today. I was putting in my application for it, and I had to go out and get I had to go out and get street signs from the city of St. Louis so I can park that pod out on the street for like the better part of 72 hours. And so anyway, when I went out and did that, came back 45 minutes later, it tells me the apartment's no longer available. So, but I don't know. I was mildly annoyed, but hey, at least I didn't do the whole application yet. And I feel like it just wasn't for me. There's going to be something else that comes up. I'm not worried about that. That I might even like more. But I am feeling really good about my job. The culture, I was there in person. I met people there. I met the HR girl that I've been working with over email, and she was just super nice. And everyone I just interacted with there, just really nice and friendly. And I feel like definitely mostly on my wavelength. Just like a polar opposite of my former workplace, where everyone was just stuffy and not very social, and just you felt like everyone was just like judging you all the time. At least I did. And it was just toxic. You felt like people were just judging you all the time. You felt like you were never on like stable ground. Like I felt like any day I walked in there could have been my last. That's how you know it's a toxic work environment. And this new one should be really good. It's ranked like one of the best employers in the state of Illinois, I think, for 2024. And but I'm excited too. It's gonna be a whole new industry for me, a whole new line of work that I've never really done before. Even though I've participated in some of these activities more from like um, the customer angle, if that makes sense. And yeah, I was looking forward to it. Something new. It's every My whole life is going to be different by this time next week. I'm going to be no longer a Missouri resident, so I'm thrilled about that. I'm going to be, I guess, an Illinois resident, even though I'll be living in a hotel at first until I can sign a lease on an apartment that I like. I'm not in a huge rush. I don't want to sign a lease on something I'm not really mostly happy about. And yeah, I don't know when I'm going to actually start work. It could be as late as October 14th, but I'm hoping I can start the week before that if my paperwork all goes through and the state gives me the license I need to start. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, just if you'd have told me a few months ago that this is what I would be doing right now, I would be like, how? I was still working my toxic, evil job at my evil workplace. It was, yeah, and took I was very much like on the I'm gonna stay in St. Louis no matter what, and I'm gonna ride or die in St. Louis forever. And but that switch flipped the second I lost my job, and my divorce was basically final. All the paperwork was filed. It was like that 1 week where that switch flipped, and I'm just like, I gotta get out of here. Like, what am I doing here? So, but yeah, so I'm just like I'm already pretty proud of myself that I've done all this. I never could have done this about 2 3 years ago. I was in bad shape mentally, and just nothing was going well. Like I knew my marriage was going down the tubes. I wasn't happy in it, but I didn't really know how to end it. And yeah, I just knew that it wasn't going to work. But it's like at first no one wants to be the one to like start ending the process and starting the separation. And but somehow it all happened. It's just one of those things you can't imagine. Sorry, you can't imagine it until it just happens. It's like Abraham Lincoln said in one of his speeches that he knew that slavery would end one day, but he couldn't predict how. And I feel like life is like that a lot. You just can't, so many things you cannot predict ahead of time in any way that is going to be close to the reality. Like right now, how are we going to get past this fascist moment? How are we it's not even just a moment. This is the culmination of everything that started during Reconstruction. This is like a 160-year cycle, almost, that we are wrapping up, I think, which makes sense because Uranus. Is it Uranus that has the 160 year, or is it? Yeah, it is Uranus because Uranus just went back into Gemini, which is where I believe that's where it was when the Civil War started 160 years ago. Or is that Neptune? I don't know. It's one of those two. Sorry. But yeah, one of those is back to the exact same part in the zodiac that it was then. It took 160 years to come around the whole zodiac and get back to where it is right now, and which is also where it was at the beginning of the Civil War. Yeah, so things are rough in terms of the external world, but I'm trying to just, I mean, really, I'm glad I'm doing all this moving stuff because I feel like I would be focused on the news even more. Although I will say that when I drove back home yesterday from Chicago, I just end up listening to like YouTube podcasts, and it tends to all be news stuff and some astrology stuff, maybe human design, but more often than not, it's politics. And there's a few people I like to watch most of their videos, and I'll do like comments on them using like the talk to text thing, which is a lifesaver. I somehow never used this until just a few months ago. And when you're trying to drive and you want to like text or type out a comment, you can just hit the button, and the little microphone on an iPhone, you can just talk. It's not perfect, especially in a loud car on the highway. Like it'll do typographical errors for sure, but most people can figure out what you're trying to say. And it's almost like talking to somebody right there in the car, but they're not, but there isn't actually anyone there, which is the best possible case. Because I don't really like road trips with other people. I like alone time all the time, but especially on the road. Uh, yeah, so I mean, how's everyone feeling right now about life and this country and what is happening with it and to it, and therefore with and to us? It's just, I don't even know. It's like part of me is just like, why am I moving somewhere and going to sign a new lease? I'm going to be stuck somewhere else. Yeah, I could live in an extended stay, which is like just as cheap as an apartment these days. But I stayed in one, the one that I thought I was going to live in for a while. I stayed in just one night, 2 nights ago when I went up to Chicago, and it's in the northern Chicago suburbs. And it was just gross. Like it, I've noticed this in that area, like the northern Chicago suburbs. It's a really nice area in a lot of areas, but the hotels are just like decades behind. I feel like on standards. Like this room was identical to a room I stayed in for a new hire pilot job I took at an airline that was based in Memphis in 2007. So 18, this room I was in 2 nights ago was like identical to a room I stayed in 18 years ago. I don't remember what the name of that chain was in Memphis, but this was an extended stay America. And I know that's not what it was in Memphis, but hotels buy they exchange properties, and change the names all the time. So it's possible you can stay in a hotel that has a different name than the last time you were there. And but it wasn't even renovated. And it's like weird now because I feel like I look at these pictures on the internet, and like even the exterior pictures of the building, I'll think, okay, well that doesn't look old, but that's because I remember that building style when I was like from 15, 20 years ago. And in my mind, I'm still thinking like, okay, that's relatively recent. It's probably from the 2000s. But then it's like, okay, well, that means it's like at least a 15 to 20-year-old hotel room. And for some reason in that area of Chicago, their hotel rooms just haven't been renovated over the years. So it's disappointing, but it's also just a sign of the times that so much of corporate America has been shifting to the south and to the Sun Belt, places like Texas, Florida, Atlanta, Phoenix, Vegas, and as bad as evil as corporations can be. I mean, hotels, any kind of corporation, they know how to allocate their money for the most part very well. And if they're not investing in hotels in the northern Chicago suburbs for the last 15, 20 years, that kind of tells you like, okay, the business traveler isn't going there much anymore. The people on the expense accounts and corporate accounts aren't really going there much anymore. So they just kind of let it just they just kind of leave it to rot. And these extended stay hotels are just like, they're the modern day poorhouses. That's how I felt when I was there. You can tell there are people living there long term, which is not a problem. But these people were really like in bad shape. And I don't know what they would do if they somehow weren't able to pay for that place anymore, because that was like the only thing between them and homelessness. And yeah, it's just like, what are they going to do? Living in there it's just no place. It was just nowhere to. I hate to sign a lease again, but geez, like living in a place like that is just not an option for me. Like there's just too much negative energy and too much. It just felt like gross and dirty and just old. And like, how am I supposed to cook a dinner in that kitchen where, I mean, at least it smelled like bleach when I got in there, so it tells me it was somewhat cleaned, but it also makes me wonder, why did they have to bleach the counter? So because that's typically not something you smell when you go into a hotel room. So yeah, but yeah, I don't. Apartments want 3 times your monthly rent in income to consider you like a, a decent tenant, and I don't even know if this job's going to do that for me. And if you hear a song playing in the background, that's my Samsung dryer that reached its time limit. So I like to say that it's playing the Chinese national anthem. Any Samsung, I have a Samsung dishwasher in here too. It does the same thing. It plays this tune for like 20 seconds. So annoying. Okay, it's over. And yeah, just looking forward to the change. I didn't really see anything ice related or immigration related, even though I'm not that far from the Great Lakes Naval Station. I think that's all happening now in Broadview, which is south and west of Chicago. More so, it's not really north of Chicago, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they came up to my new area. So, but I'm not worried about it. I kind of hope. I mean, I would like to help everyone as much as I can, and resist peaceably and not violently as much as I can to help others. That would feel good. And but yeah, I'm not being treated well by my current apartment company. Ever since I put in my notice, like I just feel like it's been just low key to high key harassment and retaliation for leaving. It's crazy. And I've never been treated this bad by a landlord once I put in my notice. And they have stopped the tours though. When I had that bipolar meltdown a couple weeks ago, I felt bad about it. But you know what? There have not been any more tours, and I have to believe that was why. But it's like, why I shouldn't have to be like that. People shouldn't have to be that way to just simply get a request granted. Like, don't bring random people into my apartment, especially when I'm not there. And I feel like that's part of the reason why our society is just getting so like coarse and crass and mean. People have realized over the last few decades that if you want to get what you want in life, you got to just be a jerk. And that's more often than not, that's how things work. And it's unfortunate. Like, you shouldn't have to be a jerk to like get things you want. You shouldn't have to treat people badly and make them feel bad just so you can get something you asked for and get taken seriously. Yeah, so I mean, that's just our society in general doesn't reward good behavior, doesn't reward respecting others, and it's such a problem. And I think that's why we are where we are. When a society does not breed good habit patterns and respect for others, like no wonder we're in our current situation because good qualities are not like rewarded generally, especially in the workplace, and that's going to influence our whole culture because how many, I mean, we all spend like way more time at work than we do at home with our family, with our friends, or in my case just by myself. And mm, so our work culture is going to be our overwhelming national culture in most cases. But of course, there are as many different work cultures as there are types of people and career paths. And yeah, until we have a life where treating people well is rewarded, being a good person is rewarded, being just yeah, I mean, it seems like now the only time you get that is if you work at a good company with a good corporate culture, like the one I'm about to start at soon. So that feels really nice. And I hope it stays that way. A lot of times people, a lot of times it's easy to look at things through rose colored glasses when you start a new job and you don't see things that, you're not going to see for maybe 6 months to a year. And then you'll start seeing all the things you either like ignored or overlooked when you were starting this job. So there's always going to be something like that, but hopefully it's not bad. Hopefully it's not so much that I'm like, okay, now I'm done with this. I tend to get kind of bored with things easily, but I think this will have some opportunities to advance and grow as well. So, on that note, I'm going to call it a night here. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, and I feel great today. Somehow on that last trip up to Chicago and back, I felt awful when I got back, like it was mental COVID, like I told you. And now today I feel fine. I slept well last night. I think the difference, part of it at least, was I didn't sleep as well in that hotel the night before. And I also drove up to Milwaukee that day. So like I started in northern Chicago, drove up to Milwaukee, went to the Boardgame Barrister, drove back down to northern Chicago, did a couple more things there, and then drove all the way back to St. Louis. So at least now I know my limits. And thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. This may be one of the last times you see this setting. I am going to be, gone here pretty soon. So we're nearing the end of this era of this scene from my balcony that faces north. And we'll see what happens in my temporary home and then eventually my apartment. So thank you. Bye. Take care. Good night. Bye.